All right, thank you. Excited to be here. We are almost there. I'm the last thing standing between you guys and lunch and this hackathon. So let's get to it. So I'm Tobias. I'm on the Applied AI team at Anthropic. And first, two important questions here. One is, who has already redeemed their Anthropic credits that we sent out ahead of time? Show of hands. Proactive folks. We have a few proactive folks. All right. For the rest of you guys, good news, at the end of this, we're going to have a QR code. You can scan it. You can still get $100 in Anthropic credits to help out during your hackathon. So what we're going to talk about here, just a quick one of show, we're going to talk about how did we get to these AI coding agents. And then number two, Claude Code, what makes it so powerful, how it works. And then we'll talk about some practical use cases of how you guys can use Claude Code, some tips and tricks, and some more advanced features. So let's zoom back in time a little bit. If you would have asked me maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, hey, Tobias, how should I be using AI? I probably would have said a single LLM call, right? You put some text in, and then it spits some text out. This is maybe summarization or classification. And at the time, that felt like magic. So that was great. Then we started to get more creative, more complex, and we chained these LLM calls together. This might be in parallel or in series, and we call this a workflow because it's still a predefined set of LLM calls. And you can do a lot of cool stuff with this. This was AI chatbots. A lot of these are predefined workflows with LLM calls. And now where we're at today are these agentic workflows. And this is a buzzword. A lot of people throw around agents and miscategorize agents. What an agent really is it is deciding its own trajectory, right? So it's got an orchestrator model, and then you give a set of tools, and you give it a goal, and then it iterates until it hits that goal. And as far as where we're going, we're not going to dive too deep into this, but looking at longer horizon, more complex agentic tasks. So that brings us to Claude Code. So Claude Code is our agentic command line tool. And we found that you can delegate it substantial coding tasks, and it can go off and execute on its own. So that's what we're going to talk about. So what makes Claude Code so powerful? The obvious one is the brain, the model. And so this is typically either Sonnet or Opus. And it's really good at complex tasks and tool calling. So out of the box, it comes with 14 tools in your command line, so it can read files, edit files, write files. You can hook it up to your other command line tools as well. It can search the web. And it's got granular permissioning as well. So what this means is like you're always trying to figure out how to keep the human in the loop in these agentic workflows. On one side of it, you're hitting approve every 10 seconds. And then on the other side, you delegate an hour, and it goes off and does something you didn't intend. So we've actually built in granular permissions. You can say, Claude, you're allowed to read files, but if you want to go edit stuff in my S3 bucket, you need permission. It's really good at agentic search as well. You kind of give it these broad, challenging tasks, and it will go crawl through your code base and find those files, find the classes, find the functions. And of course, security is always top of mind. This all runs locally on your computer. The calls go direct to Anthropic API, or it's also running on AWS Bedrock or Vertex. This is in contrast. A lot of tools, they'll index your code, and then those embeddings will be uploaded to the cloud. So you're probably saying, Tobias, this is great, but do I really want to code in the terminal? Can't I just wrap this in a nice GUI, or how do I use this with my IDE? The good news is this is meant to be a complement to your current IDE. So this integrates with, we've got integrations with VS Code and all the VS Code forks. So if you're using Cursor, if you're using Windsurf, or JetBrains, all you need to do is you just run Claude Code. So once you install it, and we'll cover that later, you just run Claude in the terminal inside your IDE, and it will install that integration. Super simple. What does this get you? So one really neat feature, it gets you this diff viewing. So Claude goes away, makes some edits, and proposes it to you. You can view those diffs right in your IDE. And it's also contextually aware. You can select a chunk of text and then say, hey, Claude, what's going on in these lines? Or change this variable that I've highlighted right here. All right, so let's talk about how to use it. There's 3 use cases we're going to cover. First is around learning about an existing code base. See if we can get the demo to pull up here. So this is an open source repo. It's Excalidraw. This is an online collaboration tool. Some of you guys might be familiar with it. And traditional flow, you might poke around in the code base. You might go to somebody that's knowledgeable and ask them questions. So here, we're actually just going to ask Claude, without any prior context, just go through this code base and explain what's going on in the relationships. So here, you can see it. It's agentically searching through. It's reading in these files. And then in just a couple seconds, it's going to spit out a summary of the project, the different modules within the project, and some of the different architectures that are used. So this is actually, at Anthropic, this is actually how we onboard engineers. We just give them Claude Code, and we say, go explore the code base. Go ask questions about our mono repo. All right, so let's talk about some tactical tricks. So step 1, you're hopping into a new code base. Just ask it to explain stuff for you. You can reference specific files with the @ key, with the @ character there. You can have it document this architecture. So if you write /init, it's going to go through, read all your code base, and then document that structure. The Claude MD file, a lot of you guys might be familiar. This is where it's got like a system instructions where you can give it preferences on, number 1, tools that you have available in the CLI or MCPs, or if you have styling preferences, like every time I make a change, make sure to run the linter, the type checker, and run any test cases. It's surprisingly good at just agentic web search. So you can just ask it, go off and find me a good open source repo for browser use. And it'll go off, compile that back, and you can kind of feed that into your development plan. And this is another fun one we were playing around with just last week. Have it visualize your code architecture. So for the Excalidraw one, we just asked it, hey, Claude, help me visualize what's going on in this architecture. And I said, hey, just do it in one HTML file. And just in a few seconds, it whipped up a pretty decent outline that might help some people understand what's going on in your code. All right. So now, how do we actually build stuff with Claude Code? There's a lot of different apps that can build something from scratch, right? You're vibe coding on half a dozen different tools, 0 to 1, one-shotting different apps. What Claude is particularly good at is taking an existing application and building new features on top of that. That's a much more complex task. We can do the 0 to 1 as well. So can about a dozen other folks. So an example here, I've got a chatbot. It's a customer support chatbot. And I want to implement a chat history feature. And so I'm just going to tell Claude, I want to implement the ability to save chats. I want it to appear in that left-hand column. And I'm also going to need a new chat button up at the top. You can see it work. You can see it making the changes. It summarizes what it actually changed for you. And just like that, in one shot, it has chat history exactly where we wanted it on the left, and new chat button up on the top. So this is just one example. Some tips and tricks when you guys are building this afternoon. You guys have probably heard this, but I can't emphasize it enough. You need to spend time planning, right? So there's a few things you can do here. One, just ask Claude to make a plan. So if you use the keyword plan, it's going to lay out the proposed steps, but it's not going to actually write any code yet. You got to do this first. The second option is you hit Shift-Tab, and then it'll go into plan mode. This does something similar, where it creates a plan, but it doesn't write any code yet. You can also use these keywords. think hard, and ultra think, this actually allocates additional tokens to allow Claude to spend more time making a plan. So if you're laying out a really complex task, use some of these key thinking words. Connect it to some of your other tools. So you guys may be familiar with MCPs. One of the most powerful workflows I've seen, hook it up to your Jira, and then you can say, hey, Claude, pull in the 5 latest Jira bugs and make a plan to address them. And it'll automatically pull that in and make a plan for you to review. Find a way to let Claude iterate. This is a really fun one. So if you're making maybe a web app, a mobile app, give it some way to actually visualize that end product. So you can either just take screenshots and then drag that into the terminal, and you can say, hey, Claude, this part looks wrong, or make it look like this. Or you can hook up the Playwright MCP. Then Claude can actually open your browser, take a screenshot, and iterate until it looks like what you want. So I've seen a lot of really powerful workflows with that. You can have it write tests and then say, hey, Claude, iterate against this test until it passes. And there's a whole bunch of automation you can do with GitHub as well. Hook it up to the GitHub CLI, and you can have it automate a lot of your Git commands. You can have it write your commit comments for you. All right, so now you've built a couple features. You want to know, in my hackathon this afternoon, you guys are hacking for 7, 8 hours. How do I do as much as possible? How do I build 10 times faster? Here's a couple ways. The first thing you're going to want to think about, how can I parallelize my Claude workflows? There's a couple ways to do this. I was just talking with Matthias before this. He's using Claude directly in the terminal. The first simplest option, this is what I do, you just open another terminal with Claude. So you set your first Claude off in one terminal. Maybe you're planning a feature and executing. Just open up another terminal, run it in parallel. You can go off and start researching a new feature. Maybe you go debug a different feature. I'm maxed out at about two terminals here, 2 Claudes. I've seen people just run 4 terminals. So not that it's a challenge. Git work trees. This is another great feature that's integrated with GitHub. You can check out multiple versions of the same repo and then have Claudes working on independent features so they don't run into each other. And let's talk sub-agents for a minute. So this was a recently released feature. There's 2 things to note here. You can ask Claude to run agents in parallel. So you can say, I want to build these 3 features, spin up 3 agents to execute this in parallel. So that's step 1. Step 2, you can create specialized sub-agents. So you just type /agents. And what this does, these sub-agents, number 1, they preserve the context of your main agent. So you can have a sub-agent go off and explore a massive code base, learn what the structure and architecture looks like, come back, and it'll output a summary to your orchestrator agent. But all of that additional context is then preserved. That doesn't muddy up the primary orchestrator agent. So this is super useful. You can also have specialized instructions for these sub-agents. So I spun up just a code researcher sub-agent for this exact use case, and you can give it some special system instructions. You can even assign it a different model as well. So play around. There's a lot of really powerful workflows you can do with these sub-agents. All right, we are almost there. One more advanced feature. So everything we're talking about here has been Claude Code in the terminal. You can also invoke Claude Code through our SDK. So this is, for example, in GitHub. You can actually go into GitHub, and it's called GitHub Actions. And you can tag Claude. You can say, @Claude, please investigate and propose a plan for this issue. And that actually spins up a version of Claude to go investigate. So you could actually build a call to essentially the Claude agent within your application. All right. So with that, super excited to see what you guys are going to build. One of the best parts of Claude Code, there is so much user-generated content about some of the really advanced workflows that we're seeing. So we love to see what you guys come up with. Scan the QR code here. There's going to be a cutoff in 15 minutes. So you guys have 15 minutes to sign up for your Anthropic credits. Installation instructions right here. Super simple. Try it out, and we'll pause there. Thank you. Let's do, I don't know how we're doing on time. I know we're already late. Maybe one question before lunch? Two. What do we got?
Hi, thanks for sharing, and thanks for the QR code. My question is very general. It's like, how do you think AI coding agent will help developers improve their own skills, including working with AI together?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of how do you not fall behind in your own coding development skills by just delegating everything to the agent and then it cranks off? We've actually I saw an experimental project that actually it's a /learning mode that somebody developed where as Claude is cranking along, it's actually explaining why it's doing certain actions. So I think there's some really creative ways that once we get to the capability of you could delegate 2 hours of coding directly to the agentic tool, that you can then intentionally ask it, bring me along for the ride. So I think we need to be intentional about it, but there's a ton of opportunity there for it to actually be the primary teaching mechanism to keep us sharp. One more, anybody? You guys are just excited to go start hacking away.
Thank you. It's a bit of a kind of tactical question. How would you describe the difference between using Claude Code versus using Sonnet in Cursor? What are the differences? Do you get different outputs from the models?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like, when should you use Claude Code versus an IDE that also has an AI-powered tool? In general, the workflow that I've seen most common, again, a lot of folks will use Claude Code in Cursor. That's a pretty common workflow. Mostly, I see Claude Code being used early in the development process for really complex agentic tasks. Like if you're looking to delegate something for 30, 40 minutes and build out the architecture, you kind of start architecting and planning with Claude Code. And then as you get later in the process, you're doing some surgical edits, you're probably going to do that in your IDE. So maybe that's Cursor with some autocomplete powered by Sonnet. So they work together. Each person has their own preference, but that is the most common better together that I've seen. It's a good question, though. We had one more up front here.
What time? I was just wondering what time you are leaving the event.
Yeah. You're trying to get some bonus credits, I see here. I'll be hanging out for probably another 30 minutes. So if you've got extra questions, come find me at lunch. Love to chat, hear about what you guys are doing with Claude Code. All right. Thank you.